My name is Laura. I was 32 years old the day my mother-in-law told me my disabled newborn would never be a real part of her family. Welcome back to NonStop Revenge Stories. If you've ever been underestimated, ignored, or betrayed by the people closest to you, this story is for you. The comment came during what was supposed to be a happy family dinner. My husband Daniel was holding our 3-week-old son while relatives gathered around the table. Margaret, my mother-in-law, stared at the baby and sighed. "Let's be honest," she said. The room became quiet. Daniel looked at her. "Mom." She ignored him. "Don't embarrass us by pretending everything is normal." I felt my face burn. "Our son is normal," I said calmly. Margaret shook her head. "No, he's different. And the family needs to think realistically." Nobody challenged her. Nobody defended us. I looked down at my son and promised myself I would never let anyone make him feel unwanted. What none of them knew was that Margaret had already started making plans behind our backs. The truth sitting quietly behind that moment had nothing to do with concern for my child. It had everything to do with money. What happened after that dinner is why I'm finally telling this story. Margaret had always been obsessed with status. The Bennett family had money, a lot of it, large investments, commercial properties, trust funds. Every conversation somehow returned to wealth and reputation. After my son's diagnosis, her behavior changed. First, she acted supportive. "I'll help with expenses. I know specialists. You can always rely on me." Then the conversations became stranger. "You too must be exhausted." "We're managing," I replied. "You shouldn't carry this burden alone." Burden. That word stayed with me. A few weeks later, she invited Daniel and me to lunch. Halfway through the meal, she finally revealed what she wanted. "You should consider letting me help make decisions for the baby." I frowned. "What kind of decisions?" "Medical decisions, financial decisions, future planning." Daniel immediately shook his head. "We're his parents." Margaret smiled politely. "Of course." But something felt wrong. I didn't realize then how important that detail would become. A month later, my father-in-law Victor unexpectedly stopped by our house. He rarely visited without Margaret. That alone surprised me. After making sure Daniel wasn't home, he handed me a leather-bound binder. Old, heavy, worn from years of use. "Keep this," he said. "What is it?" "The family trust binder." I stared at him. "Why are you giving this to me?" He looked uncomfortable. "Just read it." Then he left. That binder became part of my nightly routine. Every evening after putting my son to sleep, I sat at the kitchen table and read page after page. Trust agreements, amendments, financial records, legal language. Most of it was confusing. Then I noticed repeated references to protected beneficiaries. One section specifically mentioned disabled descendants. That caught my attention. The language was complicated enough that I decided to consult a trust attorney. The attorney reviewed the documents carefully. Then he asked a question that made my stomach tighten. "Has anyone discussed guardianship with you?" My heart skipped. "Why?" He pointed to several clauses. The trust contained special protections for vulnerable family members, particularly disabled descendants. Before I explain what happened next, let me know where you're watching NonStop Revenge Stories from. The attorney continued reading. Then he looked up. "These protections are substantial." "How substantial?" He slid a document toward me. The projected value connected to my son's trust benefits exceeded $20 million. I stared at the number. 20 million. Suddenly every conversation with Margaret felt different. Every offer, every suggestion, every attempt to gain influence. At the time I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. The attorney began digging deeper. Additional trust records were requested. Historical amendments were reviewed. Old correspondence was examined. Then he called me one afternoon. His voice sounded unusually serious. We found something. What? There were consultations. Consultations. Legal consultations regarding guardianship. I felt cold. When? The answer shocked me. Months before Margaret had ever discussed the subject with Daniel and me, she had already been exploring options. I wish I could say that was the worst part. It wasn't. The real surprise came later. The attorney uncovered financial projections attached to those consultations, professional estimates, asset control analyses, projected authority structures. Every document pointed to the same conclusion. If Margaret gained legal guardianship over my son, she could indirectly control assets connected to his protected trust interests. Assets worth roughly $20 million. That was the moment everything finally made sense. She wasn't trying to protect him. She was trying to control what came with him. For the first time, I understood why she kept referring to my child as a burden. She never saw him as family. She saw him as access. The trust board held its annual review meeting 3 months later. Attorneys attended. Trustees attended. Financial advisors attended. Family members attended. More than 15 people sat around the conference room. Margaret arrived looking completely confident. She greeted everyone, smiled, made small talk, acted like she owned the room. Daniel and I sat quietly. The leather binder rested beside me. The same binder Victor had trusted me with months earlier. The meeting started normally. Financial reports, investment updates, routine discussions. Then the lead trustee requested a review of beneficiary protections. Margaret's expression changed immediately. A large screen displayed trust documents, historical amendments, legal opinions, guardianship consultations, financial analyses. Nobody spoke. The trustee calmly explained the findings. Protected beneficiary provisions, restrictions on asset control, the special protections established for disabled descendants. Then came the final document, the financial projection, the one showing how Margaret could gain indirect control over approximately $20 million connected to my son's trust interests. The room became completely silent. Margaret finally spoke. "You're misunderstanding my intentions." The lead trustee remained calm. "This isn't about intentions." He tapped the documents. "This is about records." No one argued. No one defended her. The evidence was too clear. The truth remained undeniable. One trustee after another reviewed the findings. The conclusion never changed. Margaret had positioned herself to obtain authority over assets tied to a disabled beneficiary. Whether she called it help or protection no longer mattered. The documentation spoke for itself. What happened next changed everything. The board voted that afternoon. Margaret was removed from trust leadership responsibilities. Independent trustees assumed control. Additional safeguards were implemented. New oversight procedures protected vulnerable beneficiaries, including my son. The consequences unfolded quietly. Family members who once supported Margaret became noticeably distant. Conversations changed. People stopped automatically agreeing with her. Even Chloe, her daughter and biggest supporter, became silent whenever the trust was discussed. Victor eventually apologized to Daniel and me, not with a dramatic speech, just a simple sentence. "You were right to protect him." That meant more than he probably realized. As for Margaret, she spent months insisting she had been misunderstood. Maybe she believed that. Maybe she didn't. But the facts never changed. The records remained. The trust remained. The truth remained. Today my son is thriving. He's loved, protected, and surrounded by people who see him for who he is instead of what they can gain from him. The leather binder still sits on a shelf in my office. Whenever I see it, I think about how close we came to trusting the wrong person. I never wanted revenge. I never wanted anyone's fortune. I simply wanted my son treated like he mattered. In the end, I didn't destroy Margaret's position. Her own actions did that. All I did was refuse to ignore the truth. And if this experience taught me anything, it's this. You do not need permission to defend the people you love. The truth eventually speaks for itself.